Half of that $1 million bonus is basically mine. That was what Alex said, raising a glass of champagne in front of our friends and family. The words cut sharper than the crystal rim of the flute they were holding. The chandelier above us threw shards of light across the penthouse dining room, and I tightened my grip on the leather folder in my lap. Inside it was the contract that would change everything. The room erupted in laughter, the kind of polite laughter that hides discomfort but still obeys the rules of a social gathering. I felt the weight of every gaze slide toward me. Some were smirking, some pitying, most pretending not to notice. The candles flickered on the long mahogany table. No one saw how hard my hand shook beneath it. You see, I had spent 3 decades learning that humiliation often comes not with a slap but with a smile. And this was Alex's smile, wide and triumphant, basking in the glow of their own audacity. Tell me where you're watching from, and hit subscribe. This story is about family, money, and betrayal. And trust me, it is worth staying for. But let me slow down a moment. I am Morgan, 31 years old, a senior manager at a New York firm that works in international finance. For years, I climbed steadily, one rung at a time, never flashy, never reckless. Savings were my shield. I carried an emergency fund that could weather storms. I contributed to our shared account, always more than Alex. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment overlooking the East River, a lease signed together with a pen whose ink was still fresh. Rent was not small, nearly $3,000 a month, but I made it work. Alex, younger than me by 2 years, was always restless. They flirted with photography, pottery, marketing seminars. They said they were searching for an authentic self. I tried to believe it. Maybe I wanted to. But what they really searched for was freedom from responsibility. And that birthday evening, Alex made sure the entire room knew it. Now that Morgan makes 6 figures, I can finally focus on my passion projects. Real love means support, doesn't it? Their tone was sugar-coated, but the barb was sharp. The table burst into another wave of clinking glasses. My chest tightened. I noticed Alex's cousin filming with her phone, already preparing to upload the toast to Instagram. Viral bait ready-made. I smiled, the kind of smile people wear when they've been pushed into a corner and have no intention of staying there. What Alex did not know, what no one in that room knew, was that tucked inside the folder under my palm was an agreement with our company's London office. A 2-year leadership contract. Housing included relocation covered pay nearly doubled. I had delayed my answer for weeks, torn between ambition and loyalty. But loyalty had limits. The noise in the room blurred into a dull roar. Someone's laughter rang too loud, too sharp. My mind replayed Alex's earlier words from that morning. I quit today, babe. Finally free of corporate chains. You'll handle the rent right while I figure out the real me. I had nodded quietly, then pressing my lips together. Inside, I already knew the decision was made. The birthday candles melted low. Alex opened gift boxes with exaggerated delight, each thank you a performance for the phones pointed at them. I watched quietly, folder still closed, glass still full. When I left the table for air, I overheard Alex speaking near the balcony, voice low but smug. Morgan will pay. They always do. It's their role provider safety net, whatever you want to call it. My role is to shine. Those words wrapped around me like cold wire. I leaned against the glass door, breathing in slow. The funny thing about betrayal is that it does not always announce itself with shouting. Sometimes it arrives with champagne and applause. Sometimes it dresses itself in dreams and hashtags. I will tell you later what happened when I finally opened that folder. For now, let me frame it like this. The party went on, the lights burned bright, and everyone left with slices of cake wrapped in silver foil. No one saw the quiet storm building inside me. And no one realized that before the candles even touched wax, I had already decided to light a fire of my own. The morning after that birthday, the champagne glasses still lined the counter. Empty plates stacked high candle wax hardened like frozen tears on the tablecloth. Alex sat cross-legged on the sofa, scrolling through their phone, with the satisfied grin of someone who believed the world owed them applause. They looked up, eyes bright. Did you see the comments? My toast is already trending. People are saying I'm brave for quitting. Hashtag self-discovery. I folded my arms. You posted it? Of course, Alex said, as if the question were ridiculous. This is my moment. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I noticed the sleek black camera on the coffee table. A brand new model lens cap still dangling. Price tag nearly $3,000. You bought this yesterday, I asked. Alex shrugged. Consider it an investment. I'll book clients soon enough. Photography is the future. People pay good money for authenticity. With what money? My voice was quiet, measured, but my heart was beating hard. Our emergency fund, Alex answered, waving a hand like it was no big deal. You always say savings are for rainy days. Well, yesterday was pouring. That fund was 80% my sweat and sacrifice overtime hours, delayed vacations, dinners skipped. I had imagined it would protect us in case of illness or job loss. I never pictured it drained overnight for a hobby. But Alex wasn't finished. They opened their laptop, turning the screen toward me. An enrollment confirmation glowed on the page, a $500 online course called Find Your Purpose. Next to it sat receipts for paints, pottery wheels, art supplies, nearly another 1,000 in credit card charges. I need tools to explore myself, Alex explained, voice sweet, but eyes daring me to challenge them. Don't worry, babe. You'll cover the bills while I take the leap. 6 to 12 months max. That's what real partners do. I said nothing. Silence can be louder than anger. That afternoon, while Alex drafted captions about new beginnings, I sat at my desk and opened my email. The London contract stared back at me, patient as ever. I reread the lines about relocation, the generous salary, the housing allowance. Each word felt like a rope thrown across an ocean, inviting me to climb out of drowning waters. I clicked accept. Within an hour, the reply came, Fantastic, we'll expedite everything. Your flight leaves Sunday night. The decision sat in me like a stone, heavy but solid. Over the next days, I lived two lives. By daylight, I nodded along as Alex spoke about a future photography studio, about life coaching sessions booked for hundreds of hours, about podcast appearances they were sure would follow. By night, I quietly organized movers, canceled utilities, and scanned financial records. Saturday morning arrived crisp and cold. Alex had printed a budget plan on glossy paper, presenting it as if it were a business proposal. They spread the sheets across the kitchen island. So here's the deal, Alex said, tapping numbers with a manicured finger. If you pick up some overtime and cut back on your hobbies, you don't really need that gym membership anyway. We can maintain our lifestyle while I focus on growth. Dad even said it's about time you stepped up as a real provider. I smiled thinly. Your father, who hasn't worked in 10 years, thinks I should pick up overtime. Alex beamed. Exactly. He understands what true partnership means. I almost laughed. Instead, I reached for my coffee and sipped slowly, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue. But I have news too, I said at last. Alex leaned forward, expecting something small, perhaps a raise or a promotion. Their smile widened, greedy for good fortune they assumed would be theirs. Better than a promotion, I told them. I accepted a position in London. I leave tomorrow night. The silence that followed was the purest sound I'd ever heard. Alex's face drained of color. That's not funny. I'm not joking, I said, sliding the printed contract across the counter. The notary stamp gleamed in the morning light. Here, read it. You can't, Alex whispered, voice breaking. We have a lease. We have a life here. You ended our life here when you quit your job without a word and spent our savings on cameras and courses, I replied, calm but firm. Tears welled in their eyes, yet their tone sharpened. You planned this. You're punishing me for choosing happiness. I shook my head. I was offered this contract 2 months ago. I considered turning it down for us. But then you made a unilateral decision about our future, so I made one too. You've been lying for 2 months, they accused. I've been thinking for 2 months, I corrected. There's a difference. Their hands trembled as they grabbed their phone. I'm calling Gigi. She's a lawyer. This is financial abuse. Gigi sells skincare in an MLM scheme, I said quietly. But go ahead. While Alex ranted into the phone, I continued sorting through the folder of documents. Lease release, penalty paid accounts separated. My half of the story was already written. Later that night, Alex posted a furious message on LinkedIn. When your partner betrays you by leaving for another country without discussion, you learn their true nature. While I courageously left toxic corporate culture, they chose money over love. Ladies, beware of narcissists who punish growth. But the internet has its own memory. Within hours, comments poured in. Didn't you quit your job without telling him first? So you drained the emergency fund, but he's the bad guy. Receipt don't lee, sweetheart. He made a choice just like you did. The post backfired spectacularly. Screenshots spread across Twitter, TikTok even, group chats. I watched quietly sipping tea in the glow of my laptop. What Alex didn't know was that I had only just begun. By Sunday evening, the movers had already tagged the boxes I wanted shipped overseas. Alex thought they were supplies for our future studio. I let them believe it. Sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. That night, Alex called for a family dinner at their parents' townhouse. A grand affair, though none of them could afford the marble-topped counters and chandelier they showed off. Credit cards and illusions paid for those lights. I walked in carrying nothing but the folder my faithful companion these last weeks. At the table, Alex's mother leaned across with a gleaming smile. So proud of Alex for finally pursuing their dreams. True courage, don't you think, Morgan? You'll support them, yes, that's what family does. I answered only with a polite nod. The meal began. Roast turkey potatoes soaked in butter wine poured too freely. Alex beamed as though they were at an awards show. Finally, halfway through, they stood and cleared their throat. I've prepared something for us all. They pulled out laminated pages from their bag. A budget, a plan line by line of how I would carry every expense while they discovered themselves. Rent, utilities, health insurance, my name, my paycheck. They had even added a column for studio growth, which meant more courses, more cameras, more whims. If Morgan picks up some overtime, Alex explained brightly, we can maintain our lifestyle without strain. I'll need about a year, maybe 2. That's not too much to ask. After all, Morgan has always been about stability. The table clapped. Their father raised his glass. About time you stepped up as a real provider. I set my fork down carefully, the folder's edge pressed against my thigh. You made this without asking me, I said. Alex waved a hand. Why should I? You'd only lecture about money. You never understand dreams. My jaw tightened. Dreams built on someone else's savings aren't dreams, they're debts. The room stilled for a moment, then laughter filled it again, the kind that mocked while pretending to celebrate. I heard whispers control freak, money obsessed. I looked around at faces that had benefited from my steady hand more times than they admitted. And in that instant, something inside me clicked. I have news as well, I said, rising slowly. My voice was calm, even gentle, but every eye turned. I accepted a new position, overseas. Alex's fork clattered. You're joking. I opened the folder, sliding the stamped contract across the table. London, 2 years. Housing included. Pay nearly doubled. I leave tomorrow night. The silence this time was not polite. It was heavy like a church before confession. Alex's mother gasped. You can't just abandon. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said, voice firmer now. I am choosing a future that was offered to me. A future you all knew nothing about, because unlike Alex, I considered the weight of my choices. Alex's face twisted, half fury, half fear. You planned this to humiliate me, to get revenge for quitting. I shook my head. I planned nothing, but I refused to fund your illusions. If you want to explore yourself, do it with your own earnings. They stood abruptly, chair scraping against the polished floor. This is abuse. This is betrayal. Their cousin had already pulled out a phone, filming again. Alex, red-faced, shouted into the camera. My partner is abandoning me for money. See how selfish stability can be. I gathered the folder and stepped back from the table. If stability means a roof, food, and dignity, then yes, I choose stability. But what I really choose is freedom. I left the townhouse to the sound of raised voices, chairs moving, someone crying loudly. Outside, the cold air bit against my face, but it felt clean, honest. Later that night, Alex went live on Instagram, tears streaming. Imagine giving 4 years of your life to someone only for them to walk away for a paycheck. Imagine being punished for chasing happiness. The comments rolled in fast. At first, sympathy poured their way. But then the screenshots began. Their own earlier post, I quit my job because Morgan will always pay. Their proud photos of the new camera captioned, funded by our emergency savings. The tide turned quickly. Comments cut deep. So you quit without asking, but blame them for accepting a better job. Looks like you wanted a wallet, not a partner. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Alex's face crumpled on the stream, reading the words aloud, trying to defend. But the internet does not forgive hypocrisy. I watched quietly from my half-packed apartment. The movers would arrive in the morning. By then, Alex's live rant would already be stitched into memes, their words replayed in cruel loops. And still they had no idea how much further I was willing to go. Monday morning dawned gray, the kind of sky that carries no promise of Sunday. The movers came early, efficient, and quiet, carrying my labeled boxes down the stairwell. Each thud of cardboard against metal rails felt like punctuation on a chapter closing. Alex padded into the kitchen, barefoot hair uncombed, still clutching their phone. Their voice was sharp. "You really think you can just disappear? Walk out like I'm a tenant you're evicting." I poured coffee. "Not disappear. Relocate. There's a difference." "You're abandoning me." Their tone cracked, climbing into something almost theatrical. "After everything I've given up for us." "You quit your job." I cut in, keeping my tone steady without discussion. "You spent our emergency savings on hobbies. Don't twist that into sacrifice." They slammed the counter. "This is financial abuse, Morgan. You think because you earn more, you can just dictate my life?" I slid the London contract across the counter once again. The embossed letterhead gleamed, the notary stamp firm and final number, but I can dictate mine. They didn't even read it this time. They pulled out their phone, thumb moving fast. "Fine. If you won't listen, maybe the world will." Within minutes, Alex had gone live. The screen glowed with their tear-streaked face as words spilled out. "Imagine loving someone who chooses money over love. Imagine being punished for chasing happiness." I sat at the table, sipping coffee, watching the numbers climb. Hundreds joined, then thousands. But the comments weren't what Alex expected. "Didn't you quit your job without telling them? So they're supposed to bankroll your art career. Receipts don't lie, sweetheart." One viewer even dropped screenshots of Alex's old post, "The camera purchased the Morgan will always pay" caption. The chat exploded. Alex froze, eyes darting across the screen. They tried to fight back, reading comments aloud, voice trembling. No, you don't understand. That was different. That was..." But the internet loves irony more than sympathy. Clips were already being cut, shared, memed. I left them there, arguing with strangers in glowing text boxes, and began checking my travel documents. By afternoon, Alex's mother called. Her voice shook with fury. "How dare you humiliate my child like this? Leaving for London, broadcasting it in front of everyone." "I didn't broadcast it," I answered. "Alex did. I simply accepted a job. Family sacrifices for each other." "Then perhaps your family can sacrifice for Alex's dreams," I said, "because I'm finished." I hung up before she could answer. That evening, Alex stormed into the bedroom, cheeks blotched red, voice hoarse from crying and shouting. "You've ruined me." Everyone's laughing. Even Gigi said the comments were brutal. "Gigi sells face creams," I said gently. "Not legal advice." "You're so smug," Alex spat. "You think London will save you. You think doubling your paycheck makes you untouchable." I looked at them, really looked. For 4 years, we had lived together, built routines, shared mornings, and yet in that moment, Alex felt like a stranger, someone who saw me not as a partner, but as a ladder. "London won't save me," I replied, "but it will free me." They screamed then, a raw, unrestrained sound echoing against the walls. And finally, they hurled the camera, the one they'd bought with our savings, across the room. It shattered against the hardwood floor lens, cracking like ice. I didn't flinch. I only bent down, picked up the broken pieces, and placed them neatly on the counter. "You ended our life here," I told them quietly. "I'm simply finishing the work you started." That night, while Alex raged online and called every relative for sympathy, I packed the last of my clothes into 2 suitcases. The movers had already sent the rest ahead. My phone buzzed with confirmation: Sunday evening flight, window seat, London Heathrow. I slept lightly, half expecting Alex to wake me with another accusation. But the only sound came from their muffled sobs through the wall, mixed with the buzz of incoming notifications they couldn't stop reading. Morning arrived, and with it a strange calm. I brewed one final cup of coffee in that apartment, inhaling the rich scent like it was a farewell ritual. Alex stumbled into the kitchen, eyes swollen, hair tangled. They looked less like a victor and more like a child who had lost their favorite toy. "You won't come back," they whispered. "No," I said, "I won't." For the first time, they didn't argue. They just sank into a chair, staring at the broken camera still lying on the counter. I picked up my folder, tucked my passport inside, and walked toward the door. The city outside hummed with ordinary life horns, footsteps, morning chatter. But for me, everything had shifted. The air felt different, as though I had stepped into a new country before the plane even left the ground. As I closed the apartment door behind me, Alex shouted one last time, voice echoing down the hallway. "You'll regret this, Morgan. You'll crawl back when London spits you out." I didn't answer. Regret, I had learned, belongs to those who stay too long at tables where respect is no longer served. And I had already booked a seat at another table. The week passed in a blur of final arrangements. Papers signed, utilities, canceled bank accounts separated. Each document I filed felt like pulling another root from soil, too poisoned to sustain life. Alex, meanwhile, cycled between fury and despair. One moment they raged, accusing me of betrayal. The next they wept, begging me to stay. But the plane ticket sat in my folder, immutable as stone. Then, as if fate wanted one last act of theater, Alex's grandfather died. The funeral was set for Saturday, a day before my departure. Alex's family called, expecting me to attend, to stand beside Alex like nothing had fractured. I considered ignoring it. But then I realized the funeral offered something else a stage, and I had a script of my own to deliver. The church was old, with stained glass that caught the winter light and fractured jewels. Rows of black suits and dresses filled the pews. Alex stood near the front, eyes red, but posture, stiff, basking in condolences as though they were applause. When I entered, murmurs rippled. Some looked away, others stared openly. Alex's mother whispered to a cousin, shaking her head. I carried only one item, a slim black folder. Inside lay the deed to the apartment, notarized, stamped, and solely in my name. After the service, as mourners gathered in the adjoining hall for food and murmured conversation, Alex's uncle clapped me on the back. "Glad you came, Morgan. Shows you're still family. And listen, now that you're making double in London, maybe you'll help out with expenses here. The roof needs fixing, the car repairs family pulls together right." I smiled thinly. Family also respects boundaries. Right now, I'm just here to pay respects to a man who actually worked for what he had. The uncle blinked, thrown off by the edge in my tone. Then Alex's mother approached, voice sugar-coated but eyes sharp. "Since you'll be overseas, darling, we should make arrangements for the apartment. Alex will stay, of course. It's family property, after all." She said it loud enough for the room to hear. Heads nodded. Agreement murmured. I opened the folder slowly, laying the trust deed flat on the table beside the casserole dishes. The official seal glimmered under the fluorescent lights. "This," I said, voice clear as the deed. "Paid in full. Signed in my name alone. It is not family property. It never was." The room fell silent. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped. Alex's face drained of color, lips parting, but no words emerging. I continued. I gave years of my life to this family's expectations. I paid bills, covered debts, even tolerated being called nothing but an ATM. But today, at this funeral, I bury more than one life. I bury the idea that you own me. Gasps rippled. Alex's cousin, ever ready with her phone, caught it all on video. Alex finally found their voice shrill and panicked. "You can't humiliate me like this. Not here. Not today." "You humiliated yourself," I said softly. "Every time you declared my income your property. Every time you posted online that I would always pay. Today, I simply showed the truth." Alex lunged for the folder, but I pulled it back calmly. "Touch this and you'll only prove me right again." Their mother hissed, "You cruel, selfish—" "No," I cut in. "Cruel is expecting loyalty while giving none. Selfish is draining an emergency fund for hobbies and demanding more. What I am is finished." The silence that followed was almost holy. Even the priest, still in his robes, watched with solemn eyes. I closed the folder, tucked it under my arm, and turned to leave. Behind me, the murmurs swelled, some condemning, some whispering admiration. Phones buzzed as the video spread, already leaking into social feeds. By evening, the clip was everywhere. Me laying down the deed, Alex sputtering with no defense, the family caught in stunned silence. Captions ranged from brutal to gleeful. "ATM no more. When the provider stops paying. Funeral turned courtroom. Guess who lost?" Alex tried damage control, posting a tearful statement about being ambushed, about betrayal at a time of grief. But the internet remembered their own posts too well. Side-by-side screenshots surfaced. Their proud Morgan will always pay against their new claim of victimhood. The ridicule was merciless. Hashtags multiplied. Number self-discovery scam trended again, this time with clips from the funeral. I watched it unfold from my half-packed apartment suitcase open on the bed. The broken camera still sat in the trash lens, shattered like glass teeth. I thought of Alex's words. You'll crawl back when London spits you out. But London wasn't spitting me out. It was opening a door. And Alex by their own hand had locked themselves outside. Thanksgiving arrived late, that November the city already dressed in twinkling lights and window displays. I had no intention of attending Alex's family gathering. My flight to London was booked for the following week. My bags were packed, my documents neatly arranged. But then the email arrived. A group invitation sent to me by Alex's mother, dripping with false civility. We'd love for you to join us one last time before your big adventure. It read less like an invitation, more like a dare. Against my better judgment, I went. The townhouse was warm, filled with the smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon pie. Laughter echoed from the dining room. Alex greeted me with a brittle smile makeup heavy enough to hide the exhaustion etched into their face. The humiliation from the funeral still clung to them, though they tried to act untouched. Dinner began with the usual chatterwork complaints, neighborhood gossip, exaggerated stories of success. But the undercurrent was sharp. Every eye drifted toward me, every joke carried a hidden barb. Halfway through the meal, Alex's father raised his glass. Let's be thankful for Alex, who has chosen the brave path of self-discovery, and for Morgan, who will surely remember their obligations no matter where they live. The table chuckled, some nodding, others smirking. Alex looked at me with triumph, as though daring me to deny it. I set down my fork, calmly unfolded a sheet of paper from my folder, and slid it across the table. It was an email, addressed to Alex's entire family, and attached was a screenshot of Alex's Instagram post from weeks earlier. I quit because Morgan will always pay. Gasps circled the table. Forks clinked against plates. Alex's face went white. That's not real, they stammered. It is, I said evenly. You wrote it, and you sent it to the world. I only reminded your family of what you proudly declared. Someone's phone buzzed, then another. The cousin who always filmed was already typing furiously. Within minutes, the screenshot was on Twitter, paired with captions like Thanksgiving feast with a side of delusion. The hashtag number, self-discovery scam, flared back to life, climbing the charts faster than before. Alex tried to laugh it off. Out of context. Everyone knows jokes don't translate online. But the comments online were brutal. Not a joke when you drain their savings. Funny how context disappears when receipts exist. Imagine quitting your job and calling your partner an ATM, then crying victim. At the table, the tension snapped. Alex's uncle leaned forward. So it's true, you actually expected Morgan to bankroll your life. Alex's voice rose shrill. I was building a brand, growth takes time. Their aunt shook her head. Growth or greed? The room fractured, some shouting, some silent, some furiously texting as the story unfolded in real time online. Alex's mother slammed her napkin onto the table. Enough! This family does not air its business to strangers. But it was too late. The strangers were already watching. Screens lit up, comments flooded in the video snippets, spreading like wildfire. I pushed my chair back and stood. You wanted an audience, Alex. You invited them with every post, every boast. Now they're watching, and they see you for what you are. Alex's hands trembled. You ruined me. No, I said, voice steady. You ruined yourself. I just refused to hide it. The silence that followed was thick as gravy. Faces turned away, unable to meet mine, unwilling to defend Alex further. I left the table folder under my arm and stepped into the cold night air. Behind me, voices rose again. Anger, denial, arguments, crackling like a fire about to burn itself out. By the time I reached home, the email had leaked beyond the family. Screenshots topped Reddit threads, TikTok duets mocked Alex's words, Twitter piled on with merciless humor. The phrase, Morgan will always pay, had become a punchline. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the city lights shimmer. Somewhere out there, Alex was reading every word, watching their carefully curated image unravel. And still they hadn't realized the worst was yet to come. By the time December rolled in, the internet had chewed Alex up and spat them out. Their once curated feeds were ghost towns. Comments filled with ridicule followers dropping like leaves in winter. The phrase Morgan will always pay was now shorthand for entitlement, a meme recycled by people who had never heard of us before. I boarded my flight to London with a strange lightness in my chest. 2 suitcases, a folder of documents, and a one-way ticket. The plane hummed through the night sky, leaving behind not just a city but a life I had already buried. London greeted me with frost and fog. The company's relocation team met me at Heathrow, keys in hand, for a flat near Kensington. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen rent, covered as part of the package. When I stepped inside, the rooms echoed bare but full of promise. I unpacked slowly, savoring the sound of my own footsteps on clean floors. Meanwhile, back in New York, Alex was drowning. News clippings reached me through colleagues and friends. They had tried to launch a photography page, but every post was spammed with mocking hashtags. The broken camera had become a symbol. Someone even sold stickers online of its shattered lens. Worse still, the family who once cheered Alex on now distanced themselves. At Sunday dinners, their name became a subject whispered, not spoken. Their mother no longer tagged them in holiday photos. Their father, who once raised a glass to me as provider, reportedly complained about being embarrassed at the grocery store. I learned all this not because I sought it out, but because Alex's downfall had become public theater. People love a story of arrogance, punished entitlement, unmasked. In London, my days settled into rhythm. Early mornings walking past the Thames, workdays filled with meetings in sleek glass towers, evenings in pubs where colleagues raised pints to new beginnings. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened. One Friday evening, a coworker invited me to a small gathering. There I met someone, kind eyes, easy laughter, a lawyer by trade. We spoke of travel, of books, of the strange way people cling to illusions. There was no weight in their voice, no expectation I'd carry them. Just conversation, light and honest. I didn't call it love, not yet, but it felt like breathing air I didn't know I had missed. Alex, by contrast, seemed to suffocate. A cousin posted a cryptic message. Some people burn every bridge and then wonder why they're standing alone. Comments guessed at the subject. Most guessed correctly. It wasn't long before Alex themselves confirmed it. Late one night, they went live again, face pale hair, unkempt tears, carving lines through makeup. Everyone abandoned me, they sobbed. Even Morgan. Especially Morgan. But the sympathy they begged for never came. Instead, viewers typed cruel echoes. Morgan chose freedom. You chose delusion. Accountability hits harder than champagne toasts. I watched from my quiet flat the city of London glowing outside my window. For once I felt no anger, no bitterness, only distance. Alex was a figure on a screen shouting into a void that no longer answered. Work flourished. I signed contracts, led teams, spoke in boardrooms with confidence I hadn't known I possessed. Colleagues praised my clarity, my steadiness. Some even said my story inspired them to draw firmer lines in their own lives. And at night, when I returned to the flat, I no longer feared what awaited. There were no surprise bills, no emotional storms, no cameras purchased on whim. Only quiet, only peace. The contrast was stark. Alex in New York alone mocked, trapped in the very apartment they once claimed as family property. Me in London, building thriving, sipping tea, as Big Ben chimed outside. Sometimes I wondered if they realized the irony. They accused me of choosing money over love. Yet it was never money I chased. It was respect. And respect cannot be begged or borrowed. It must be mutual, earned, shared. I'll tell you the truth, part of me did grieve. Not for Alex as they were, but for the illusion I once held that we had built something together. That illusion died harder than the relationship itself. But grief fades when life gives you something brighter to hold. And London was bright in its own gray, foggy way. One night, sitting on the balcony with a glass of wine, I whispered into the cold air, I chose freedom. The city lights flickered back as if agreeing. London's winter deepened the streets, lined with glowing lamps, shop windows dressed in garlands. I had been in the city for 3 months when I realized I no longer woke with that knot in my stomach. No dread of confrontation, no waiting for the next crisis. Only quiet mornings, steady work, and evenings that felt truly mine. News of Alex reached me less and less. The family who once celebrated their courage had grown tired of excuses. Their cousin unfollowed them. Their aunt blocked them after being asked for another loan. Even the uncle who once lectured me about family obligations reportedly laughed at Alex's latest failed scheme. I did not celebrate their fall, but I did not mourn it either. Consequences like seasons come whether you're ready or not. One Sunday, I received a message from an old mutual friend, a single screenshot. Alex had posted, "If you think love means paying all the bills while your partner mocks you, then maybe I misunderstood love." The comments below told the whole story. You didn't misunderstand love, you misunderstood partnership. Morgan didn't leave for money, they left for sanity. Some lessons arrive late, but they arrive. I closed the phone and set it aside. That chapter was over. In its place, I built new routines. I traveled on weekends, took the train to Bath, ferried to Dublin, even wandered Paris for 2 days on a whim. My work thrived, my circle grew, and little by little, the weight I had carried for years slipped away. Sometimes at night I thought of the apartment in New York, the broken camera, the shouts in the hallway, the folder I carried like armor. I thought of the funeral, the Thanksgiving dinner, the viral hashtags. And then I thought of now the soft hum of the city outside the quiet of my flat, the sense that I belonged to myself again. You see, people often confuse stability with money. They think choosing financial security means choosing coldness, greed, selfishness. But that isn't the truth. Stability is about respect, about knowing your life will not be yanked sideways by someone else's whims. It is about being allowed to dream without carrying the burden of another's carelessness. Alex once said I would regret leaving, that I would crawl back when London spit me out, but London did not spit me out. It welcomed me. It reminded me of something I had nearly forgotten. Freedom is worth more than applause at a table where no one respects you. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: love without respect is not love. Partnership without balance is not partnership. And the moment you realize someone sees you only as a wallet, a ladder, or a safety net, you are already free to walk away. They called me selfish for choosing money. But I didn't choose money. I chose freedom. And I would choose it again. If you think I made the right choice, comment, right. If you would have handled it differently, share your idea. I want to hear it.